Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of You Can't Do That Anymore, a movie podcast where we look back at some classic movies that we may have loved or that people have loved, or maybe nobody loves or they've always had problems, and look back and figure out what's problematic about them, how we could improve them going forward, and if there's any worth in keeping them. As always, I am your host, Blake Schultz, and with me are my co host, Anastasia Washington.
Hey guys, that was my Terrence.
And Terrence Tatum.
Hey guys.
And joining us today is our guest, Laura Sirikul, whose work you can find on The Nerdist, Nerds of Color, and THR. I'm very excited you're here. How are you? Thank you for coming.
No, I'm great. Oh my God. I am so excited to talk to you guys. And I want every time I see Tatum's last name, I always want to go shouting like all over your Tatum.
Yum.
That's
a new one.
He's got it all. The deep voice, the straight brown liquors, the deep bravado, and a very, very good name.
I'm sorry, the straight brown what?
Liquor. I know where your head went, but no.
I was like, what are you talking about?
Every episode, we have to almost have a moment that we ourselves can't do anymore.
We have been canceled.
He took that drink, and I just was like, oh, I could use one of those. But today we are talking about The Karate Kid, a movie that I'm okay on for the most part. So we're not going to destroy my nostalgia, but based on Anastasia's reaction, we're about to destroy hers. Guys, my first question, as I often do with the show, he said on his third episode, which I guess defines often, what was our first exposure to the movie and how did we feel about it then? Laura?
Well, I saw it as a kid. The movie came on, was made before I was alive, but like it.
Whatever.
But I watched it as I watched it later on, because it was on TV and stuff, and so I watched it and I was like, oh, okay, cool, like it's just like a karate. I did martial arts anyway, and I was just like, oh, cool, martial arts, and I'm like, that's not how it's done, but okay. but I was still like, I watched it because I was a fan, because like I like Pat Morita, I think back then I was like, oh, it's a cool movie, that's good for him, the good guy wins. Yeah, it's just back then I was like, yeah, the good guy wins. But now it's a lot different.
Yeah.
Again, I saw it at the Stonehenge Drive-In. No, I'm just kidding.
So,
Is that what Stonehenge is for? Is the
Yes.
conspiracy
What else?
over?
It's like
it's
a
drive-ins during the pandemic.
That's what they do.
Drive-ins. No, I don't actually remember the first time I saw it. I guess it would have been on, like on TV or on like VHS or beta, because I was 1 when it came out. So if they brought me to the theater, I don't feel like I had a really good experience with it.
Yeah, that wouldn't go.
I loved it because I wanted to kick ass.
I was I had to be 3, I think, when this came out. So I definitely did not see this in the theater. I did end up seeing it on VHS, or either like, this was another one of those shows that TBS had or TNT had, that they would run them in an order, especially whenever a new one came out. They're like, cool, let's watch all of these over again. So I did that somehow in there, and I watched it. And I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I didn't actually, at that point in time when I was watching it, realize that it had become such a like important part of like film history. Like, I didn't realize it was as big as it is. But I enjoyed it, but I don't really remember any of the sequels subsequently afterwards, so I didn't stick with the series. Sorry.
What about the time the Karate Kid became a girl?
And honestly, I was, oh yes, Hilary Swank.
Yeah.
The Karate Kid didn't become.
I was like, she didn't.
Yes, it's like
Yeah.
Doctor Who.
It didn't evolve.
And the Karate Kid became, it should have been Kung Fu Kid,
That's
became
true.
black.
Became a young black.
Exactly.
black kid.
When it became black and went to a different country than he should have.
Like, that's no longer karate, but sure, whatever.
Yep.
I will say this: I didn't really get into this show, and I mean to this movie, until Cobra Kai came. And now that Cobra Kai exists, I actually enjoy the original Karate Kid way more than I originally did, because some of the problems that I have with this movie are addressed in Cobra Kai, and I dig that they sort of took the piss out of that first movie.
Yeah, I was so late to this movie. I had
Get
been
it? You're young.
not even that though. Like I saw Back to the Future and E.T. and Breakfast Club and all these things when I was like 6. But Karate Kid, I often call it my like pop culture renaissance. When I was working at GameStop at high school and they were just going through all the things I hadn't seen and putting them on. And by then I was doing martial arts too, and I knew the movie quotes and everything else and like so well that by the time I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, all right, that's why we say it. Okay, cool. That's wax on wax. I got it. Checked it off. So like it was good and it was fine and I didn't dislike it, but it was one of those ones where after years of everyone being like, you've never seen The Karate Kid? And then I finally watched it and was like, yep, it's a movie that has a very abrupt ending, in my opinion. It just
So very abrupt.
it just stops.
I did
the
not
movie
remember
just
this being
ends.
the
It
case,
stops
but I
with,
watched
with
this.
the approval face.
I had to rewind it thinking I missed something. I'm like, there has to be something else because there's no way this film just ends with just his face like, well
That's how
done.
Life Lit ends, like this.
I hope so. I would be fine if somebody looked at me approvingly at the end.
But what about the song? It's the theme song to my boobs.
I mean,
You're
look,
the breast around. Nothing's gonna ever bring you down.
It's
No,
all
just
right.
me. All right.
Problematic.
and that's the end of it. Yeah, it also was just, I think by the time I saw it, I was, and this, I don't know, this might actually not be a terrible thing, but I think it's worth talking about. When I was doing martial arts, I'm a white person, and I was sort of being like,
I'm out.
should I be
Done.
doing this? Like,
Yeah.
it was, so even watching that movie, I was like, oh no, am I appropriating? I like a lot of these scrolls I've bought. Should I take them? This seems wrong. But what really stuck out to me in the movie was like this old school bullying. And this like, they're doing it like rap battles where they just come and you just have one like a hyper aggressive bully. And the guy being bullied is being like, I shouldn't be violent ever. It'll all work out. It's like, well, you got your leg broke. I don't know that some of these lessons did not seem.
Well, he didn't say he didn't want to be violent. His Mr. Miyagi said he shouldn't
Yeah.
be violent.
Sure. But I mean, like Yoda said Luke should be violent, and he was like, I'm gonna go to Cloud
I'm
City and like handle
cutting
some
this
stuff.
man's arm off. Like his hand is being.
That's cool. You've been in a swamp for half your life. I'm gonna go solve this problem we have.
You don't know what Yoda's been through.
You're not seen shit.
Yeah, he's seen a lot of shit.
Thousands of years of shit.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's a classic. It's
It
part
is.
of the '80s zeitgeist. Everyone talks about it. We've been chasing this ghost for years between YouTube Red and reboots and another rumored sequel to everything. Laura, why do you think this? Oh, they're making a Kung Fu Kid 2 or whatever you want to call that new one. Maybe. Who knows what Sony's doing? Right now, no one's filming anything, so it's fine. Laura, why do you think this connected with audiences so much at the time?
Because it's the unknown. It's like, because like honestly, when everyone thinks of martial arts, Asians and martial arts, they think mystical and everything. It's like, wow, this art. It's like karate, and like it's not karate. It's like karate, and like and it's this. I think everyone wants to be part of that, and so they see themselves in Daniel. And they're like, Daniel-san, like, oh, just call me Brian-san. Like, everyone's just wanting to be part of that mystical, like, martial arts, like Bruce Lee kind of style. And like, and in theory, it's fine. Like, if people want to be part of that, but it's become like, it's kind of like how, like, it's just like, oh, like karate, like you could like just learn it and become a winner, a champion of just a few months of training. And I think people just have that hope. They're like, oh, I could be a fighter. I could be like part of this mystical Asian arts.
Wait, you're saying
And
I can't learn karate that fast and be like
not by
excellent at it?
waxing cars.
You can. Sure, you
If
can.
I paint this fence all the way through, I can whoop anybody's
I'm
ass.
willing for you to take that experiment and use it on my house. I have some stuff that
Yeah.
needs to be done
Hey,
around the
you know what?
house.
I could train
I
you.
feel like
You want to come over?
I'm just gonna get all my housework done. I don't really care about this kid. I'm just gonna.
It's like sand it.
The
sand
way
it.
he hold his hand too, I was just like, what? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people were just obsessed with that. They love the idea that they could be fighters and be part of that culture of like ninjas, you know, and fighters. So I think people were just obsessed with that idea that, you know, I as a white person can become a martial artist and like a superstar martial artist by just following these principles.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a lot of training, you know. It's it's years of training and studying that, and it's not that easy, like, and it's there's a big disconnect, you know.
Yeah, I think there's a weird conflation that people get where if they understand a philosophy, they can also perform very hard physical tasks. And for some reason, in so many movies, we're always like, okay, look, they're going to become a really good fighter. But first, they're going to walk up this hill with these buckets of water, and then they'll be able to do backflips. And it's like, well, that isn't my experience.
Yeah.
I could never do a backflip. And
No, you
walked
have
up
to go
some
into
steps.
the lake with Patrick Swayze, and then you learn how to jump.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like,
that's true. I catch you. That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, I painted my fair share of fences and washed my dad's truck every day as a kid. I really enjoyed it. And at no point was I was like, now I can break some boards.
I got this.
Yeah.
I think you're right. There's like this, I mean, a lot of movies are wish fulfillment, and a lot of the heroes we connect to are like, Iron Man can shoot his bad guys, and that means I can do my taxes if I try. Like there's a relatability that we then expand to. And I think what ends up happening with movies like Karate Kid, though, is we show that to an audience, and at the same time are like, by the way, it's okay to do stereotypes. And it's like, well, you took the wrong part of the message.
Yeah. Like they assume every old Asian man knows martial arts too, because it's like, will you be my sensei? It's like, no. Like,
No, I will not. That is incorrect.
Also, not my responsibility or my job. Thank
yeah,
you.
like it gives a stereotype that the old Asian man is like martial arts, and like there was like, I think there was a surge of like douchebags that generated from this movie that were like, I'm gonna do karate.
I think that's
like
the biggest issue. Like I watching this film again, I can see how people not of Asian descent connected to this film, because they're like, oh, if I've been bullied or if I've been like persecuted or whatever, this is my coming of age and I can come up and I can get my comeuppance. But where I have an issue is like when I'm watching these martial arts moments in this film, the only Asian person in the entire sequence is Danielson's trainer. And you're just sitting like, wait a minute, there should be more than just a team of white people doing these martial arts.
At that whole tournament, there was nobody.
No. So there is a half Asian. This guy is half Asian. He's the one who should have won the whole entire thing because he's actual official martial artist. And the way that he was fighting was the best form, and he's a kung fu artist. And I was watching him the whole time, and he lost. And I was just like so pissed. Like I threw stuff. I was like, "What the fuck?"
Well, their rating system was so stupid because it was like these guys were like beating him, and all he had to do was like one hit, and they were like, "He won!"
Yeah, and like this one guy, he's half Asian, and I don't know about the other half, but he's mixed, and he's an actual martial artist. He still does it. He's a grandmaster. And I'm just like, and he was a kid back then, but still like he's a grandmaster. I'm just like watching it. I'm just like, and why aren't there more Asians? And why didn't he win? Like everyone else, like looking at the form, Danielson sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, his form is horrible. Can you imagine just being handed a black belt when you have form like this?
Yeah.
Like, what even is that? What is that?
It feels like it feels like an origin story for Mac from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. where he just keeps thinking he can do it.
Yeah.
And everyone just tells him he can.
Yeah.
Which is really
They-
just a white boy origin story.
They don't in that show, though. They're constantly like, you gotta stop doing this.
I'm just saying, in Karate Kid, he is being told that. He can
Oh,
do it
yeah,
with
yeah. No,
around
there's
every
a,
corner.
it's, look, it's not a bad message to be like, you can do anything and you can learn and you can go through these things and
Mhm.
you too can win a contest and all of this. But his road is so easy. And I feel like the bullies are so evil that there's not really enough like balance there. Like it's so simple for him and he wins and it's easy. Meanwhile, the bully is like, I will burn
Or like
down
wolf pack
everything.
villains. They come in packs. We're going to destroy everything about you.
They
then-
do it
Yeah.
like gang violence.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
like,
Yeah.
at the end,
Even the
kinda give
girl,
them these
they're like
trophies,
bullying the girl.
Oh, I know. Like, should they break her, like, her stereo?
Radio.
Oh,
Yeah.
the way that Elizabeth Shue's character is treated in this as a female is she's just an object of both of these men's affection.
Yeah, Daniel treats her like shit, too.
He
Yeah,
basically
everyone treats her like
passive
shit.
aggressively abuses her as well. It's just like, oh, well, you want to be with him and you want to do that, then that's what you. And he acts like a child, petulant child. But it's
Yeah.
not just the boys, because the part that really stuck out to me that I was like, this is weird. Danielson's mom has a moment when he first started introducing about. It's like, did you meet a blonde? If she's not blonde, I don't think you should bring any trash home besides a blonde woman. Otherwise, they are terrible. Like literally, she has a whole moment. It was like, she's got to be blonde. If she's not blonde, she's not pretty enough. You deserve a blonde woman. I was like, why is this the thing that we're?
Well, even
we
Elizabeth
hanging
Shue's
up on this?
parents did not even care about her. They were like, have you seen what they did to our future son-in-law?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I know. Like,
I was like, I'm so sorry. What happened? Also, I think I think everyone knew that Elizabeth Shue in the future was going to be in The Boys and be breastfeeding like the future, like bad Captain America type
who's
figure.
blonde? Yeah.
Yeah, who's blonde.
That's true.
So they knew. I did find out a weird fact. I was when they were going into the Cobra Kai, dojo. I was like, why do I recognize this place? And I was like, oh wait, and that's where that is, and I was like, that was my dojo when I was in high school and college.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah.
fear is not allowed in this dojo. You were
No. Completely different martial arts form. I took Taekwondo and Eskrima there, so completely different art. Completely different. And now it is a crystal shop, the Home of Intuition or House of Intuition. But just so you know,
That's so amazing.
I
to me
guess
that we
I
didn't
was a
see
Cobra
that.
Kai and I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
No,
What-
and also, and also the martial arts was incorrect.
See, that's why it's useful.
The form you're saying?
We talked about this on our first episode, but that's why
Not
it's
just
useful
like
to
the methods.
have.
There's no
Yeah.
plan.
It's useful to have people of that descent or of that heritage or culture to be a part of the production, just to be like, hey, that's not right,
Mhm.
because we
Yeah.
need to get authentic with this. Otherwise, you end up in situations where you're watching this down the line, and you're like, no, that ain't right. That ain't
Yeah.
right.
Which is interesting because I was reading an interview where they were talking about how they tried so hard to make sure the culture and everything felt accurate and portrayed correctly. And I was like,
Mm.
but did you
Where?
decide to do that in the sequels? And I don't remember
Oh.
them.
When they went to the different country?
Yeah.
You know, when they went to
Because
Japan.
Yeah.
Where
I
that
feel
infinitely
like you-
worse.
It felt like something they said. I think some of the backlash was that the actor playing Mr. Miyagi, they were like, well, he's not even he's doing an accent and all these other things,
Yeah.
and now all these people think this accent is okay. And then they were like, well, look, we went to a lot of trouble to make sure it was accurate. I was like, I feel like some PR person told you to say that, and you clearly didn't.
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
we can tell.
Camarita is second gen, like he was born and raised here. So it's like he's just like me. Like we had the same accent, and so I'm like, oh, Mr. Miyagi. It's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
no.
Like he's
Like, you
putting
had-
on an affectation himself.
Yeah, like, and it's always been hard for Asian Americans in cinema. So it's like we've always had to play the foreign character. So
And be a stereotype. It's sort of
Yeah,
like
and be a
what
stereotype.
we talked about in our first episode with Hattie McDaniel with Gone with the Wind. Unfortunately, there are no other roles, so Pat sort of has to do that to get a job. But in doing so, he is being very stereotypical atypical to
Yeah.
what.
Can I ask you a question about like Fresh Off the Boat? How you feel about some of the accents in that show? Do you feel like
I feel like that's okay because they are first generation. They came from Taiwan. They actually came from Taiwan. And the thing is, those characters are really fully developed
right? That's also
versus,
very true.
yeah, versus like even like Mr. Miyagi. I did like the fact because they had to really fight to keep this in the drunk scene where
I
he find
love
out he
that
lost.
scene.
That was the best
I
scene.
love that scene.
Because they had to fight to keep that in. They wanted to take that out. And but that's the whole reason he was nominated for an Academy Award, and one of the first Asian Americans to be nominated for Academy Award.
It's
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but we only see a tiny glimpse of his backstory. And I think further on in the films, like we do see more. But with Fresh Off the Boat, we had 6 seasons of development of the characters, so I feel like that's okay. And plus, it's based on the story, true story, and the whole and they're all Asian. The whole cast is Asian, so I feel like the showrunner's Asian, all that stuff. So I feel like that's okay. The writers, because they made sure everything was sensitive, even with the accent. They made sure everything was made sense. With Karate Kid, I feel like they just followed the old trope of, okay, you know what, Pat Morita will be the sensei old man who we think is this random gardener, like a landowner, land guy, but he's actually a karate master. And so it's I don't know, we just don't I don't feel like we get enough of him other than that one scene.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was a very powerful scene.
It's a
It
scene that you
really,
needed to give him some humanity outside of what I think
Hmm.
would have, because I think the studio could easily have said we could remove this sequence, this scene, and it doesn't really affect the rest of Danielson's story. But
Yeah.
us as an audience, if you're watching this, I felt more attached to him. I was like, oh, cool, I know something about him. Otherwise, he's just this guy that sort of took on this white kid for
Yeah.
well,
reasons.
it really made me, I think that's one of the things I do like about Karate Kid too, because I grew up with an uncle that was in one of those camps.
Hmm.
And so I didn't really have any of that kind of representation of his story in any form.
Hmm.
um but they did have like a snippet of it, and I just remember him telling me stories about the camps. I remember him coming to my school and talking about it when I did a report on it, and him coming and telling stories and stuff. I remember that, and I just remember nobody talking about it
Yeah.
besides my family. And so I was very interested to see that, and it was very touching to see that. But again, it wasn't enough
Yeah.
for sure. But it was one of the few dialogues, I guess, that I had about it. I don't know.
But if like I really like that scene, and I know that they fought really hard to keep that in. So I'm really grateful for that scene. But then it just went away again because everything focuses on Daniel-san again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
feel like the POV of the movie would have been stronger if it was all Miyagi's story. That like that's
Mm.
really, even when I watch the movie now, I'm like, well, I want to know more about him. I don't. I know this kid's going to
Yeah.
be okay. That's how these movies are structured. Especially with like the overt like violence versus nonviolence ideas in it. Like if you're just imparting that on a kid who are watching get like whooped over and over again, eventually you're like, well, fight back somewhat. But if you're trying to like enforce that ideology and have all these other things,
Mhm.
I feel like it could have been more accurate, and it would have been a little less another story of a different culture through the eyes of a white person.
Yeah.
Has
Like
yeah. Has anybody watched Cobra Kai at all?
I did,
I
yeah.
have not.
I've seen a few
It's
episodes.
it it's a I feel like it handles this a lot better. One of the big things that I is like this movie does a lot with bullying, where Cobra Kai kind of shows you that Danielson is not really that good of a person himself
Yeah.
either. Like he's
A
does a lot of
dick.
dick moves, and then when we see him as they get older, it's like, oh yeah, this is what I sort of expected this kid to grow up into be, and like the way that he over infatuated Allie, Elizabeth Shue's character, he kind of just like, oh yeah, he put way too much into this. Like he's not that good of a person. But I do also think that as
Also,
we
he
go,
gets wrong on the second one. So
yeah. But I also think that when we go along with Cobra Kai, what they do a little bit better job of is that they mix in the people that are a part of the dojo, part of Cobra Kai. It's not all just straight white men. It becomes different versions of people, and something they
Yeah.
call out the fact that like, oh, this used to be always this way, but maybe we should have gone this way. We should have people who are a little heavier, people who are thinner, people who are of different ethnicities. Like we should not. We should be more of a melting pot as opposed to like just straight up white people. And how we get there is a little weird, but I think the show does a lot better job of handling that than this film did.
Well, I feel like because like Cobra Kai is of now, and I
Right.
feel like we're more sensitive now. Like we
Correct.
know what's correct, and so like obviously from the 80s from now, like if they can maintain the whole Daniel's a dick throughout now, it would have been so problematic anyway. People would have it would have been canceled already. But so I'm glad that they are addressing a lot of the stuff. But it's just like it eroticizes just Asian culture and martial arts, and even the second film just exoticized Japanese like women and Asian women, and so I don't know. It was like watching it back then. It was like fine, but now like just knowing all this stuff and like and seeing how it affected people from my people, like Asian people, like it's like, oh, this is problematic. But I could watch Cobra Kai because I do know they address all that stuff too. Because Daniel's a dick.
Yeah, I think that it's funny watching that show because I also really enjoyed it. But I was like, oh yeah, no, I like that we're going back and reinforcing these things that were in there. The other thing that Anastasia actually tweeted while she was rewatching it, they have the other line of, "Oh, you fight like a girl," and
yeah,
it's even weird hearing things like that because I feel like those were such big stereotypes that I kept seeing in pop culture, and maybe it was just my experience in my little bubble of the world, and no one actually ever like said that to anybody. And I was like, it's so strange that we kept reinforcing this. And maybe I was just in high school in 2004 and we were already like, no, we know that that's not right. But I just never saw it. But it's weird that this movie also is like, reinforce these other negative issues. Like bullying should still be like, you're weak like this gender.
yeah.
Yeah, that
And
was.
the bullying was problematic in general. It was very, very violent.
It's intense.
The bullying
It's
is
like
very intense in this, and then you have the whole thing I spoke on a little bit earlier, but just to dive in a little bit more, that Cobra Kai team, he's been broken up with Ali for a while, but he still has a very sick sense of ownership over that woman that just should not exist. Like, it's ugly.
He handles her very. I mean, but again, Daniel does as
he does
well.
Like, she should not be with either of them. But in this situation, in this triangle,
In this situation, she might just go lesbian. I mean, I just
I'd be like,
well,
no, I see how you got here.
She left,
That
so it's all right.
Yeah.
She left at the end, so they're not.
okay. All right.
So we're touching on kind of the next thing I want to ask, which is the movie's problematic. We're all on that page.
Right.
But are there any positive lessons that it's trying to impart, whether or not it succeeds? And do you think that the movie could be stronger or it could still exist if we changed the POV to any of these other characters and still have some of the same reasons that it resonated with audiences?
There is some good parts because it did talk about the internment camps, and not many people knew about that. Like, I feel like our history lessons kind of suck. Like our just history in general. Like,
we don't want to take
responsibility. So I didn't like that. It did that. But I didn't like the whole you meet violence with violence. But hey, in the end, you could be a winner. And like if I could take a good thing from it, it's just probably giving more visibility to Pat Morita because like he did do a lot more stuff because he was nominated for the Academy Award after. But yeah, honestly, just looking back, like maybe back then it was like cool. People are introduced to karate and all that stuff. But it is cool. Like people are introduced to martial arts, but I just wish that they did it correctly. That
form wise as well.
Crane is kung fu, guys. Crane is kung fu. It is kung fu. It is not karate.
Well, and the new Karate Kid, they're doing kung fu
Yeah.
and they're calling it karate. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But Jackie Chan could do anything, okay? Jackie Chan can do anything. Uncle Jackie could do anything.
Why didn't they just call it Kung Fu Kid?
That's
Just
what
call
the
it Kung Fu Kid.
The original title was, and I just don't think they thought people would
And I
realize
believe
there was
in-
brand recognition.
In some parts of the world, it is still referred to as Kung Fu Kid, but
I
here
think
in
so.
the States, it's Karate
But
Kid.
it's funny you say that.
Yeah.
When I was doing Kempo in like high school and a little bit in college, and like every new student, our teacher would be like, "So the crane thing, you've seen Karate Kid, throw it out, throw the whole movie out, get rid of it. It's wrong. Stop bringing it up." Like,
Don't
Did
even
people
talk
really
about
go into their like
All-
martial arts?
all the time.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the
I'm gonna be like
time.
Karate Kid, and I'm just like, he did it wrong.
I just want to
All
be
the
like
time.
Bruce Lee, or
Bruce Lee
or,
is correct. Can win
or
Chun.
on brand. That's a different
But
problematic.
I feel like, again, I feel like the more interesting stories are either from the girl's point of view or Mr. Miyagi's point of
I
view.
feel like Allie had a really rough time because her parents didn't really seem to give a damn about her that much.
Yeah.
either.
No,
And-
they were
Yeah,
like,
they treat
just
women
marry
horribly.
rich.
Yeah.
They treat women horribly.
yeah.
it's like I would much rather watch her deal with these two like insane men learning martial arts to win her, because the movie doesn't even like take a moment to really hit home any themes because it ends so quickly. So it really does just boil down to like, do X, Y, and Z, put the coins in the machine, and results will come out.
Yeah.
If you do the thing, you'll win the game.
Mhm.
But she also is the only one that knows the rules. I don't know if you noticed that. Like, she's the only
Oh
one
my
that
god!
knows anything
My
about
mind
it.
was blown. I was like, "Well, she's way more important than this because neither Daniel nor this sensei know what the hell is happening here." But she's like, "Oh, I got this. This is what you got to do. This is these points here." I'm like, "What?"
Which they completely threw out the window as soon as he went on the, like he got pushed out of the
None of that
ring.
mattered.
He just did one hit and they were like, yay!
It becomes some Tony Harding shit where you're like, oh, well, they just destroyed this guy's knees,
He
and
should've-
he still
should've-
won.
Should have been out from the beginning, the very first
When
fight.
he got pushed out of the
He
ring.
did it was so bad. And oh yeah, it's like so bad.
So Anastasia, we've now ripped apart something you love. Tell us, do you still love this, and if so, why? And it's okay to be like, I like things that have issues. We just did Back to the Future, where I was like, no, I still like the movie.
I'm gonna be honest. I was more into the Hilary Swank one, because I didn't see women have certain interests like that, and I was extremely bullied, and to see a woman take, charge of her own body and to learn a skill, it was really empowering for me. And we didn't have a lot of that, and I was interested in martial arts from a very young age. My sisters took martial arts from a very young age, and so it was like the only representation I had. So I will always love that one. I mean, I haven't rewatched it in a while, and it probably is extremely problematic as well. But I will
that
always have a
song.
place. But I will have a place, and I will always love the two songs that came out of Karate Kid 1 and Karate Kid 2. You can pry them from my cold dead hands because, again, my boob theme, and then I am the man that will fight for your honor. Like, it just makes me if any guy sang that to me, I would just be like,
Take it now.
I think I popped a baby out. So I think I'm going to keep the songs. I'm going to keep Hilary Swank's version in my heart. I am going to pretend the others don't really exist. And especially the new one. I was really mad. I was really mad about the representation of it. I just really felt, I don't know. I felt they could have done better with it. So I felt like in this time, in this day and age, we can do better, but we aren't. Especially in the with the Asian community, we just aren't. We aren't doing better, and I don't know why we're not doing better.
Yeah, it's so.
But we aren't.
It's interesting because so many like hobbies have Asian roots, and I feel like people get into things, even like video games or anime. And for me, it was martial arts, and then you just kind of snowball into that, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I've
I've
appropriated.
stolen everything.
Like it's hard to like learn that line because I'm not saying like Caucasian people shouldn't learn martial arts. That's insane.
Right.
But like, don't be bad about it.
Well, there's a respect level, and
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult for me about cultural appropriation because everybody in my family is from a different culture. So it's hard because what my cousins are doing, that's part of my family, but I'm not of that culture, but it is slightly part of my culture, my family's culture. You know what I mean? And so I feel like there are some weird lines that we cross, and there's interests that we cross, but knowing that you don't know it all, and knowing that you have to ask sometimes, how do you want to be represented? Again, we've discussed this in various other forms in the previous podcast. Just be respectful to the culture, and if you step on a line and they tell you stepped on a line, respect that line and listen.
Yeah.
Because
And
none of us are
also,
perfect.
I think the other thing with just martial arts in general and people learning it is like you can be good at martial arts. I was good at it the way like people are good at, like I was good at the forms and
Mhm.
all that. And then sometimes I would meet people who were like, so you can fight anyone. And I was like, that's not how it works. I'm still
But
this
yes.
frame and this person and this size. And if there's a man with a gun or a knife, I'll give him my wallet and leave. Like there's like this very weird thing that I feel like even when people are like, so you know how to fight, and you're like, yes, I also understand that means I'm not in the Matrix. And if there's a roadhouse type fight in this
Sure.
bar, I've thought about that a lot, Anastasia, and all of the evidence points to that I am in a real world.
It's
No
crazy
one's
'cause-
unplugged me.
it's crazy because the movie, like, it empowered like a lot of white people back in the day to feel like, hey, I took a karate class, I could beat your ass, kind of thing. And it's like, no,
No.
no. But then also it's like, but also assume that Asian people, even like, even though I have taken it, but like, it assumes Asian people, the stereotype, and that we all know karate, and that we for future roles, for any roles for Asian actors, like we have to. Sorry about that in background. Um,
He's upset about it. He's upset.
he's upset because
Listen.
he's an Asian baby too.
He is. He's upset.
No, and like, but the thing is, it kind of reinforces future roles for Asian people that we have to know martial arts,
Right.
and there are some Asian actors who don't know martial arts, and we just want to play regular people who like everyday Riverdale people. We want to play just like, or that's a random thing, but we just want to play everyday people.
A
And
comedian and anything like
yeah. We don't
Mhm.
want to have to know martial arts. We don't want to know how to do an accent. We don't want to have to know how to speak another language. It's like, it feels like we always have to have an added thing in like, I'm not an actor, but but in general for actors, I feel like you have to have an added thing, like in your skill, like karate, in your skill, an extra language, in your skill, an Asian accent. And it's not fair for a lot of Asian American actors, and the Karate Kid kind of set that standard for Pat Morita too, because it's like, I had to do an accent, had to know martial arts, a little bit Japanese, and it's like, okay, it kind of set the standard for Asian American actors, and it's kind of hard because it still continues to this day. Like, we see a lot of casting calls for, it's like, oh, if you know martial arts, that's a plus. If you're bilingual, that's a plus. If you know how to do an accent, like, I still know my acting friends who go into auditions. It's like, do you know how to do an accent? And it's so difficult to step away from that, and that's what the Karate Kid kind of did. And also, yeah, he's upset.
he's
I
upset,
agree.
and he should be, because also, like, when a white actor learns a different language, trains in a martial arts form for a movie or something like that, they are celebrated so much. And Right, like, and Asian actors are just expected to know this with no respect for the fact that that this is a hard thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's an extra skill.
Yeah, so that's why like I'm with Karate Kid, they kind of just added more barriers for a lot of Asians. Everyone's like, oh, it gave advantage to Asians because it introduced everyone to karate, but it also set us a standard of how Asian actors like for the future roles. If you notice later on, like like even like we still or have a difficult time. Yes, everyone's like celebrating, oh, look at the shows that you guys have, like all this stuff. But we're only moving little by little. We're not like it's only like tilted in a little bit. It hasn't shifted.
Yeah.
And also another thing about for future roles, Karate Kid shared and wanted to celebrate Asian culture without using any of us, and that's a problem.
Or using any, like we said before, losing any of you guys behind the scenes, which I think is where it gets
Yeah,
really
behind and
important.
even on like in front of the camera and on and off camera, no Asian person was used.
We spoke about this a little bit on our pilot episode with Gone with the Wind, is that like Hattie McDaniel got the role and sort of put in this spot where like, yes, it's cool that we have an African American woman who got an Oscar Academy Award, but it also puts you in this box where that's all they're going to see you as playing for a while, and you get stuck. It's like they're gonna give you inches, they're gonna give you a little bit. We've had moments where there seemed like there might have been, for in our case, an African American Renaissance where we had like My Wife and Kids on and Fresh Prince of Bel Air, and then those shows went off the air, and for a long time we had absolutely nothing, like not a damn thing, and it's weird because now we're starting to have an explosion on the African American side, but there are a lot of other communities that are not having that big of a blow, and it sucks because they're at the spot now where we used to be, where you can see like they're just giving you an inch a little bit here, like, oh, you got Crazy Rich Asians, or you got Off the Boat, and you're like, cool, you got a couple of shows there, you're good, but you're not.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
we actually have no Asians. There are actually no Asian shows right now.
No, because that's off the right. Correct.
Yeah, because they're all
that's off the air.
Into the
Aquafina's.
Yeah.
What about Aquafina's show? She's off the air now too. Right?
It's off the air right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So it goes in this weird thing where they go in this ebbs and flow, and they think like, oh, cool, they're good, but they're not. It's not good. There's a lot of work to be done.
Well, I'm looking forward to Kung Fu, the new Kung Fu movie, because a few of my friends who are Asian American, they're writers, and so they're writing for the show, and it's great because they get to put their input, and like a lot of the directors and the stunt coordinators are all Asian American descent or Asian descent. So it's kind of it's they're kind of fixing the mistake that Kung Fu David Carradine did, and also Karate Kid movies too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think that is our time. Unless anybody has anything else they want to add.
No.
Great.
I think that's good.
Laura, where can everybody find you?
They can find me on Twitter, and I write for a whole bunch of different places, like you listed. So they can find me on Twitter. I'm always tweeting. So LSIRIKUL, Laura L Sirikul. I'm always tweeting about my work and stuff too, and just tweeting about all these shows.
Great. And you can find our show. You can just search. You can't do that anymore on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're there. I'm at, as always, Blake. Terrence is at Terrence Tatum, and Anastasia's at Anastasia W. Terrence and I do a show called Hollywood Already Did It about movie reboots, remakes, and sequels. Anastasia, Terrence, and I do a show called One More Drink, which right now is about various first times that we've all had, first albums we bought, first vegetarian courses we've had, whatever we want it to be. We haven't done that, but I just said what came out of my mouth.
There it is.
That hasn't been an episode at all.
Nope. I'm going to lure them over with it. All those vegetarian listeners I bring in. I do another show called How Do You Figure about action figure collecting.